Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever reached a point in life where you prayed and it seemed as though heaven was silent? You fasted, you cried, you believed, yet nothing seemed to shift. Let me announce to you today, your prayer is never wasted. Prayer is not an echo into emptiness. It is a seed into eternity. Prayer is never wasted. Every prayer is a seed into eternity, even when answers seem delayed. A seed once planted may disappear beneath the soil, hidden from sight, but its absence does not mean death. In fact, that unseen moment is the season of transformation, the place where the mystery of life begins to unfold. So it is with prayer. When you lift your voice before God, when you whisper words that carry the weight of your soul, you are not releasing them into the emptiness of the air. You are planting them into the eternal realm where time and space cannot erase them. The silence after prayer is not proof of rejection. It is often proof of gestation. Just as a farmer does not abandon the ground because the seed is unseen, you cannot abandon prayer simply because the answer is not immediate. Prayer is an eternal investment. Every word spoken in faith is preserved in heaven's record. There are moments when God, in his mercy, answers swiftly because the need is urgent, like a seed that sprouts quickly after the rain. But there are also times when the prayer requires waiting, not because God delights in delay, but because the request involves aligning many layers of his purpose, preparing the vessel who prayed and orchestrating the right moment for manifestation. What feels like delay is often divine timing. The silence between sowing and reaping is not wasted time, it is working time. The truth of prayer being a seed also reveals that no genuine cry to God is forgotten. Seeds may lie dormant in the soil for years, yet one day, with the right conditions, they burst forth. In the same way, prayers you thought God ignored are still alive in the courts of heaven. They travel beyond your lifespan, echoing into eternity, capable of producing results even in generations after you. This is why the prayers of parents protect children decades later, and why intercessions offered in secret become testimonies long after the lips that prayed them have gone silent. The seeming delay in answers does not weaken prayer's value, it magnifies its eternal nature. If prayer only worked by giving instant results, it would remain bound to the realm of the temporary. But because prayer extends into eternity, it holds power beyond human calculation. Every tear shed in prayer is stored. Every sigh is weighed. Every groan too deep for words is interpreted by the Spirit of God and carried before the throne. The eternal God does not waste eternal prayers. He preserves them, honors them, and responds to them according to his wisdom. When you pray, it is not only about receiving what you ask for, it is about transformation. The seed of prayer does not just change circumstances, it changes you. In the silence of waiting, roots are growing deep in your spirit. Faith matures, patience develops, trust is established without even realizing it. Prayer carves the character of Christ in you. The answer may not yet be visible, but the one who prayed is no longer the same. That is why prayer is never wasted. Even when the outward situation looks unchanged, the inward man is being renewed day by day. Even prayers that seem unanswered have already released power into the unseen. You may not see the immediate sprout, but forces have been activated, angels dispatched, destinies shifted. Just as a seed planted today may produce fruit tomorrow, next year, or even after many years, so prayer works in realms beyond your timeline. Some prayers answer immediately for today's need, some wait for tomorrow's unveiling, and some are reserved for eternity. But none return empty. Prayer cannot be wasted because it is sown into the very heart of God, and what is sown into him always produces life. God's timing is different from ours. Some prayers return quickly, others take time, but none are ignored. The human heart naturally longs for immediate results because we are bound by time, seasons, and deadlines. We count hours, measure days, and grow impatient when answers do not align with our expectations. Yet God, who dwells outside the limitations of time, sees the end from the beginning. He is never late, though he rarely seems early according to our standards. His responses flow out of eternal wisdom, not human urgency. To understand this is to rest in the truth that delay is not denial and silence is not absence. When you sow a seed in the soil, you cannot demand that it produce fruit in a single night. Different seeds have different growth patterns. Some sprout in days, while others may require months or even years. The speed of the sprout does not determine the value of the seed. Similarly, some prayers are answered swiftly because they align immediately with God's present purpose for your life, while others require more time because they involve deeper processes, greater preparation, or generational implications. What seems like slowness to you is often God synchronizing your request with his divine calendar. Consider the story of Hannah. She prayed for a child year after year, enduring pain, ridicule, and what looked like unanswered prayers. But when Samuel was finally born, it became clear that her waiting was not in vain. God was preparing a prophet whose life would shape a nation. If he had answered Hannah the first year she prayed, Samuel might not have been born at the appointed season to fulfill his role. God's timing ensured that her son's life aligned with divine prophecy. In the same way, your delayed answer may be orchestrating something far greater than you imagined. Sometimes, quick answers come to build your faith, to remind you that God hears even the simplest of cries. At other times, delayed answers come to build your endurance, teaching you to trust his character beyond what you can see. Both immediate and delayed responses are part of his love. He knows what you are ready for, and he knows what could destroy you if given too early. To a child, candy is sweet and desirable, but to a parent, endless candy can harm. So it is with God. Some prayers return quickly because you are prepared to handle the weight of the answer. Others are delayed because the answer must wait for your maturity, for the right people to align, or for circumstances to open doors. God's timing is also a test of faith. Faith is not proven when the answer comes quickly. It is proven in the waiting. Trust grows strongest when nothing visible seems to change, yet your heart continues to believe. In those seasons, heaven is watching, and your consistency in prayer becomes a testimony of your love for God, not just your desire for his gifts. The waiting period refines motives, purifies desires, and ensures that when the answer finally comes, it is stewarded with wisdom. Another dimension of divine timing is that some prayers are reserved for generations. The cry of Abraham for a son was fulfilled not only in Isaac, but in the lineage that led to Christ. Your prayers may be seeds that will blossom in the lives of your children or grandchildren. You may not live to see some answers, yet they are not ignored. God stores them, releases them, and ensures their fulfillment in his eternal plan. Therefore, the difference in timing is not neglect, but perfect orchestration. To you it may look like delay, but to God it is alignment. To you it may feel like silence, but to God it is preparation. The hand that holds back the answer is the same hand that will release it at the moment it brings the most glory to him and the most blessing to you. Kristen's story illustrates persistence, consistent prayer, even when heaven feels silent, produces breakthrough in due season. Persistence in prayer is not about repeating empty words, but about demonstrating unshakable trust in the character of God. Silence is one of the greatest tests of faith. It is in silence that many give up, believing their prayers have been ignored. Yet silence is often the ground where faith matures. Kristen's journey shows that when you continue praying in spite of silence, you are planting seeds of faith that will surely yield fruit in their season. Persistence is powerful because it reveals your dependence on God rather than on circumstances. Anyone can pray once or twice, but the true measure of faith is found in those who continue even when nothing appears to change. Kristen knelt daily with the same cry, "Lord, remember me. Lord, lift me." It was not that God was deaf to her words, but that persistence was shaping her spirit, deepening her trust, and aligning her heart with divine timing. Breakthroughs are not always the result of the first knock. Sometimes the door opens only after consistent knocking, showing that persistence is not wasted effort, but an active partnership with heaven. The discipline of persistence purifies motives. Many come to prayer only for convenience, but those who remain consistent in the silent seasons reveal that their devotion is not merely for blessings, but for intimacy with God. Kristen's story teaches that every moment of repeated prayer was not a futile ritual, but an act of worship. Each whisper, though it seemed unheard, was incense rising before the throne. Her persistence testified that she valued God's presence more than immediate answers. And in return, she positioned herself for a reward that went beyond her expectations. Persistence also breaks spiritual resistance. Some answers are delayed not because God is unwilling, but because opposition in the unseen realm seeks to hinder their release. Consistent prayer becomes a weapon that weakens resistance until the breakthrough manifests. Just as Daniel continued to pray for 21 days until an angel brought his answer, Kristen's consistency ensured that no force could permanently hinder what God had already prepared. Her persistence kept the channel of faith open until heaven's response arrived. In the process of persistence, transformation takes place within the one who prays. Kristen entered her prayer room as a desperate woman, but persistence molded her into a vessel of strength. While she was waiting for external change, God was changing her internally, giving her peace that surpassed understanding, resilience that could not be broken, and hope that could not be extinguished. When the breakthrough finally came, it was not only the answer that was revealed, but also the maturity and depth of the one who received it. The testimony of persistence is that it guarantees a due season. Farmers understand that continual watering, even when no sprout is visible, ensures a harvest. In the same way, Kristen's repeated prayers, though seemingly unanswered for a time, were like water nurturing the seed beneath the soil. At the appointed season, the fruit emerged, doors opened, opportunities unfolded, and the peace she longed for filled her life. Persistence ensured that her seed of prayer did not die in the soil of discouragement, but blossomed into a testimony of faithfulness. Kristen's story embodies the truth that consistent prayer in silence is not wasted effort. It is persistence that proves faith, purifies motives, breaks resistance, transforms the soul, and guarantees harvest. The silence was never emptiness, it was preparation. The waiting was not neglect, it was formation. Persistence turned her cry into a testimony, showing that breakthrough always belongs to those who refuse to let go. Prayer is a journey. Safar, each prayer travels before God like incense, and its return may carry treasures unseen at first. A journey always has a beginning, a path, and a destination. In the same way, every prayer begins in the heart of the believer, rises through the lips, and travels into the eternal throne room of God. Like incense, it ascends unseen to human eyes, yet tangible in the spirit. The moment a prayer is spoken in faith, it begins its journey. Some return swiftly, bringing visible answers, while others journey through hidden roads, carrying mysteries and treasures that may not be recognized immediately. Prayer as a journey means that it is not a mere transaction of words, but a process through which the petitioner and God interact across time and eternity. When incense is lit, it does not instantly fill a room. It gradually spreads, permeating every corner until its fragrance is undeniable. In the same way, prayer may not always produce an instant change, but its effects travel, spreading into places you may never have imagined. Sometimes your prayer reaches into tomorrow, shaping events before you arrive there. Sometimes it travels into another person's life, carrying help to someone you may never meet. The journey of prayer also signifies movement beyond human limitation. Once spoken, a prayer is no longer bound by geography or time. A mother in one nation can pray for her child in another, and that prayer travels faster than any letter, faster than any messenger, directly to the throne of grace. Like incense, prayer bypasses barriers, passes through walls, and enters realms where human strength cannot reach. Its journey may seem invisible, but its effect is inevitable. The treasures carried by returning prayers are not always in the form you expect. A prayer for provision may return not only with resources, but with wisdom to manage them. A cry for healing may return not only with physical restoration, but with deeper intimacy with God. A request for direction may return not only with clarity, but with strength to walk the path revealed. Just as incense leaves a fragrance that lingers long after the smoke has faded, the treasures of prayer often extend beyond the immediate answer, leaving an atmosphere of grace that transforms a life permanently. There are also prayers whose journeys take them through dimensions of warfare. In such cases, the return may seem delayed because the answer is being contended for in the spirit. Yet even in those moments, the incense continues to rise before God, unforgotten, unlost. Every prayer that begins its journey completes it in God's time. None are abandoned midway. Just as a traveler returns with stories and treasures from distant lands, prayer returns carrying the results of battles fought on your behalf, victories won in realms you could not see. Prayer as a journey means that patience is required. No traveler returns the same day they set out, especially when the journey is long. In the same way, prayers may take time, not because they are ignored, but because they are traveling through paths of preparation. The answer may need to intersect with divine timing, align with other lives, or unfold in stages. This is why answers often surprise us, bringing treasures we never included in our request. The prayer traveled further than we imagined and returned with blessings greater than we asked. The incense imagery shows that prayer pleases God not only in its result, but in its very act. Long before it returns with treasures, it has already touched his heart as it rose before him. The journey itself is as valuable as the return, because it builds communion, sustains faith, and keeps the believer connected to the throne. Each prayer travels, each prayer is recorded, and each prayer carries back something eternal, even if it is unseen in the moment. Measure God's faithfulness by certainty. Not speed answers may not come immediately, but God's hearing and remembrance are guaranteed. Human nature is conditioned to equate speed with value. If something comes quickly, we call it success. If it takes long, we call it delay. But with God, the measure of his faithfulness is never about how fast he answers, but about the unshakable truth that he always does. Faithfulness is tied to certainty, the assurance that he cannot lie, cannot forget, and cannot abandon what he has promised. To measure God's faithfulness by speed is to limit him to the impatience of human timelines, but to measure it by certainty is to rest in the knowledge that his word is eternal, his covenant unbroken, and his memory unfailing. The scriptures repeatedly remind us that God remembers. He remembered Noah when the floods covered the earth. He remembered Hannah when she prayed for a child. He remembered his covenant with Abraham when Israel cried out in Egypt. The common thread is not speed but certainty. Noah waited months before the waters receded. Hannah waited years before Samuel was born. Israel waited generations before deliverance came. Yet in each case, remembrance guaranteed fulfillment. When God remembers, it is not the act of recalling forgotten information. It is the act of manifesting what he has always planned. His remembrance is a signal of his eternal faithfulness. Answers may appear delayed, but delay is often the space where faith grows. If every prayer were answered instantly, faith would never mature, trust would never deepen, and patience would never develop. It is in waiting that believers learn to anchor not in visible outcomes, but in the unchanging character of God. Certainty is built not on what is seen, but on the assurance of who he is. Just as the farmer trusts that the seed beneath the soil is working even when no sprout is visible, so must prayer be trusted in the silence. God's hearing is not dependent on how quickly you see change. It is rooted in his nature as the one who hears every cry, bottles every tear, and weighs every sigh. To measure God's faithfulness by certainty is to understand that his promises are as secure as his throne. The one who spoke the universe into existence cannot fail to honor a word spoken over your life. His integrity is the guarantee. Speed may vary, but certainty never wavers. An answer that takes years is no less proof of his faithfulness than an answer that comes in hours. In fact, the longer the wait, the greater the testimony of his sustaining grace. The certainty of his remembrance assures you that no prayer is lost in the wind, no request vanishes into emptiness. Certainty also means that God's timeline is often broader than ours. We measure days and months. He measures destinies and generations. What you call delay may actually be alignment, ensuring that the answer blesses you at the right moment and in the right way. An early release might crush rather than lift, while a timely release preserves and multiplies. Faithfulness is not in how quickly you receive, but in how perfectly the answer fits the season it arrives. Certainty guarantees that when it comes, it will be good, complete, and without sorrow. When believers learn to rest in certainty, peace replaces anxiety. The heart no longer wrestles with when, but rests in the assurance of who. God's faithfulness is not a matter of if, but when. To measure him by speed is to live in cycles of frustration. To measure him by certainty is to walk in unshakable hope. The testimony of every saint is that though the vision tarry, it will surely come. God's hearing is guaranteed, his remembrance assured, and his faithfulness unfailing. Persistence guarantees harvest. Holding on in faith without giving up ensures that every seed of prayer will yield a testimony. A farmer does not plant today and abandon the field tomorrow because the ground looks unchanged. He knows that within the soil, unseen processes are at work. His responsibility is to keep watering, keep weeding, and keep waiting until the crop appears. Prayer functions the same way. Every word uttered in faith is a seed, and persistence is the continual watering that ensures growth. To stop praying because of delay is to abandon a seed before it matures. But to persist is to guarantee that the hidden work beneath the soil of time will eventually break forth into visible harvest. The principle of persistence is rooted in trust. It reveals that you believe God enough to continue seeking even when there are no visible signs. Giving up suggests doubt in the integrity of the one who promised, but persistence declares confidence that his word cannot fail. The scriptures say, "Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not." The condition of harvest is not just in sowing, but in refusing to faint. Every act of prayer is cumulative. Each moment of persistence adds weight in the spirit, until the scale tips and the answer manifests. Persistence also confronts spiritual resistance. Some prayers encounter opposition, not because God is unwilling, but because forces in the unseen realm contest their manifestation. Consistency in prayer is the weapon that breaks through such barriers. Daniel prayed and fasted for 21 days before the angel reached him with the answer, revealing that resistance had delayed the response. If Daniel had stopped midway, the harvest would have been lost. In the same way, persistence ensures that your seed of prayer presses through opposition until breakthrough comes. Beyond overcoming resistance, persistence also works transformation within. Every repeated prayer molds character, strengthens patience, and builds endurance. The longer you persist, the more you grow in resilience and maturity. Often, God allows the delay not to withhold the answer, but to refine the vessel who will receive it. If blessings arrive too quickly, without the strength to steward them, they may be squandered. Persistence ensures you are prepared for the weight of what you asked. The harvest is not only about receiving, but about becoming the kind of person who can carry it. Persistence guarantees harvest because it keeps you aligned with divine timing. There are seasons appointed for every answer. Some crops are ready in weeks, others take years. If the farmer walks away before the appointed season, the field will rot. But if he endures, he will rejoice in abundance. Likewise, persistence keeps your faith alive until the moment when heaven releases the answer. The testimony of those who held on is always that God was faithful in the end, and the waiting season was not wasted but necessary. The assurance of harvest gives strength to remain steadfast, knowing that no prayer is lost, no effort unseen, and no persistence ignored fuels the believer to continue. Heaven values every moment of holding on. Every seed of prayer carries life within it, and persistence ensures that life is nurtured until it emerges. When the harvest comes, it not only provides the answer sought, but also testifies to the faithfulness of God and the power of endurance. Persistence turns hidden seeds into visible testimonies, and it guarantees that every genuine cry before God will return with fruit in due season.